believe we're in week 5 already. Just as a reminder to everyone listening, normally in a week 5 block, when we only had 6 weeks to play with, we'd be doing assessments. However, because with this Teach It Right block, it's the last block and it's an extended block going on for 8 weeks, we won't be doing any assessments until the later weeks. So this is going to be a continuation of the normal lessons. The content we'll be covering today is non-verbal reasoning and maths, and my name is Luke Lloyd. Welcome to the lesson, everybody. So again, guys, as we often start our lessons, I'm going to begin by just saying, please make sure we're in an exam replica environment. And what this means is, please make sure that we're, no volume in the background, no TV, no music, make it as exam-like as possible, and also make it so you're able to see a timer. And again, we'll be going through problem solving, numeracy, and non-verbal today. Let's get right to it. So the thing we're going to need, of course, is our practice test paper book. And today we're going to be dealing with page 20 to 28 to begin with. Now, just to be very clear about this, it is not page 20 to 28 at the beginning of the book. It is the get ahead section of the book, and that is the middle 2/3. So if I'm looking at the page now, I've gone past about 100 or so pages to get, strangely enough, to page 28. And that's, of course, because I've said this before, this book is really split into 3 separate books. There's the Get Started part of the book, the Get Ahead part of the book, and then the Get Test Ready. Well, we are dealing with Get Ahead, is that middle section. So again, take your time. You'll also need to find the relevant answer sheet, and again, it will need to be Test A, Paper 2. But this is so important, I'm going to underline it. It needs to say Get Ahead. And you'll see this is really important. I don't mind skipping ahead to show you when it comes to the numerical. If we have a look here, the numeracy, can you see hopefully that there's a wide mix of different things going on in numeracy in terms of 3 columns and 2 columns, and then suddenly swapping from columns to linear and multiple choice. So hopefully you can see that certainly for the numeracy section, if you haven't found the correct page or the correct answer sheet, which again, just to show you, is this one here, Get Ahead, test paper 2, the numeracy just won't match up. So again, if you need to pause the video here and just make sure you're really sorted, that's absolutely fine. Just please check that the questions you're going from say Get Ahead in the top right, but also the test paper you're answering on says Get Ahead, and that's really important. Right, everyone. If you found the correct page, it should look something akin to this. So again, it says problem solving. It tells you that you've got 8 minutes to answer the 10 questions. The section of the sheet that you'll be answering on is here. This is the problem solving section. So again, just make sure you found both. And if you look, this is the page, the first page of the questions, and it's also saying Get Ahead. And this should be very similar to the lesson you've just done with Chris. So again, if you've watched the verbal reasoning part of the lesson beforehand, it should be the exact same sheet. Right, everyone, we've seen these examples many times before. I don't think I want us to be spending too much time going through them. So what I'm going to just request is that if we just make sure that we agree that the correct answer for the first example is C, and then do take a moment, just look at the practice question and check that you agree that it is D. But once you've done that and filled it in, I would always recommend filling in the practice question to make sure this next part stays in order. We're going to begin straight away with the following section. So again, guys, this is 8 minutes and 10 questions. So you're close to sort of somewhere between 40 and 50 seconds per question. You can manage 40 seconds per question. You'll have a fair bit of time at the end to check. Do remember that some questions are going to be easier than others. It's up to you guys to try and find the questions that you find easiest, to do those first and get them out of the way. As a final note, just make sure you realize this is one where we're selecting from the box multiple questions. You are allowed to use the same answer more than once. And that's just worth noting. You are allowed to use the same answer more than once if it's appropriate. Right, everyone, I'm actually going to click start in about 5 seconds on my timer here. So again, once you begin on the timer, give yourself 8 minutes. Then come back when you're ready to work through the answers. If you don't finish all the questions in the 8 minutes, I suggest just swapping to a different colour and finishing off those questions before you come and check the answers with me in just a moment. Right, everyone. Good luck. Your time starts now. See you all in here when you're done. Right, everybody. Welcome back. So this is the section where we go through the answers, and as you can see on the right hand side, I've actually got the answers listed out. I know that some people like to just check very quickly and skip ahead, but what I'm going to be doing here is I'm actually going to go through each question and just working out how we got to all those answers. So again, if you want to break down, by all means fast forward the video to the question that you need help with. By all means use the answers on the right here to mark this page and just double check everything is as it should be. Right, guys, first question. Last year, the Smiths went on holiday to Spain. The cost of an adult return flight was £220. The cost of a child return flight was half as much. How much did the Smith family spend on flights? Well, let's just check. There's 2 adults, so we need to have two 220s. Oh, 220s, apologies. That's just reading from the passage at the top. And there are 2 children. So the cost of a child ticket was half of the cost of an adult, but then 2 of those half price will just cost another 120. So we've got 1 adult, 2 adults, 2 adults, and then we've actually got the cost of the children is just another 220. Because if I'm halving it and then times it by 2, I end up back to where I started. So that's going to be my answer. If I add this up, I should get 660. 000, 2226, 2226. There we go. Number 2. The flight lasted for 3 hours. Amy spent 90 minutes of the night watching films. What percentage of the flight did Amy watch films for? So, if the flight is 3 hours, and I'm comparing it to minutes, I want to get everything in minutes first. So I'm going to do first off 3 hours into minutes. Well, that's going to be 3 times 60 minutes. 3 times 60. 3 times 60 is 180. I can do 3 times 6 is 18. Add the 0 on 180. So now what we're saying is she spent 90 out of 180. Already I can cancel my zeros to get 9 out of 18. And hopefully you can see that 9 out of 18 is 1 out of 2, or half. So she spent half the time. Now, you might have learned, and hopefully I would say at this stage you know that half is equivalent to 50%. If you didn't, the step you would need to do is to go from a half to out of 100. And in order to go from 2 to 100, we need to times it by 50. So 1 times 50 is 50. And as soon as you see 50 out of 100, you should just know that that per cent means per 100. So 50 out of 100 is 50%. It means exactly the same thing. So she spent 50% of the night watching films, which is J there. Now again, a lot of this can actually be done in your head. And this is just me showing you the full working. This is something I don't want to stress. I think it's really important you realise that because the time pressure is pretty significant on these questions, you want to be doing as much as you can in your head to sort of save time. So if you can, for example, do this simplification, you might even be able to spot straight away that 9 out of 18 is just 50% and jump straight there, in which case, brilliant. Well done, you. Right, number 3. The time at the holiday destination was 2 hours ahead of the time in London. 2 hours ahead, okay. If the plane took off at 1:45, what was the time at the destination when it landed? So there's 2 things here. So first off, when it took off at 1:35, right, they've done 13:45, 1:35. We first thing have to do is the flight, and the flight lasted for 3 hours. So if we just add on 3 to the hours, we're going to say that the plane is landing at 16:45, which of course we know is 4:45. But so now this is the time that they've landed in London time. We now have to say, okay, well, what time would this London time be at destination time? Well, if it's 2 hours ahead, it means we're going to have to add another 2 hours. So that was adding 3 hours for the flight. This is adding 2 hours for the time difference. That's going to take us to 18:45. And at this point, I would just check to see. There you go, 18:45. It's possible that they might have changed it to 6:45 p.m., something like that. In which case, if this answer wasn't there, I would do the conversion and check. But luckily, we got away with it. It was there right at the start. Okay. Whilst on holiday, James drank 250 millilitres orange juice every morning. How much did he drink in a week? Well, a week's got 7 days, so it's going to be 250 times by 7. And again, I quite like, for this kind of sub, I like column multiplication, but whichever way works for you works best. Right, so 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 5 is 35, so let's carry the 3 and write the 5. And then 7 times 2 is 14, plus the 3, 17. So we've got 1,750 millilitres. We may have to do a conversion though. Because if we look, there's an answer of litres. How do we go from milli to litres? We talked about this last week with our unit conversions. You need to know that a milli is a thousandth. So in this time, we're going to have to divide by 1,000, which does lead us to 1.750 litres. And of course, we can discount the 0 if it's not needed. And again, how am I doing this? If that's the decimal place, I just move it 1, 2, 3 spaces up because 1,000 has got 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that's a fun way of remembering if you're timesing or dividing by 1,000, you just move the decimal place by the number of zeros. So again, so you can see the decimal there, 1.750, 1.750. That's how I'm doing it so quickly. Okay, just tidy that up a little bit. Last question. John bought a pair of sandals that were on sale for £30. This represented a 20% discount from the original price. What was the original price? Okay, the way I need you guys to set this out, and this is very specific, is to say the price equaled 30 pounds. But what percentage equaled 30? Well, if there's a 20% discount, that means that 80% equaled 30. Just take a moment to make sure you understand that first step. So £30 represents 80%. So what I want to try and work out is eventually 100%. But I need to try and see if there's an intermediate step that I can probably divide my 80 by, that when I then have it will be easy to multiply to get to 100. And there is. And the step that I'd recommend you guys go to is to work out 20%. Let's see if we can do this. So if 80% equals 30, what would 20% equal? Well, let's do it. 20% is 1/4, or divided by 4 of 80. Is to go from here to here, we need to divide by 4. So if I do the same thing here and divide 30 by 4, I get 7.5. And now if I know that 20% is 7.5, hopefully you can see how can I go from 20% to 100? Well, if I times 20 by 5, I end up at 100. So if I times 7.5 by 5, so I do the same math here, remembering this step here was to also divide by 4. Well, that means on this side I'm also going to times my 7.5 by 5. And 7.5 times by 5 is £37.50p. So we now know that 100% equals £37.50p. Now, if you're struggling, and some people have asked me this to actually show you the working out, so maybe we'll just do that on the side. Let's give myself, we'll need a bit more space, I think. So very quickly, what was the first one? We had to do 30 divided by 4. There's a few ways of doing it. I mean, if you're ever not sure, bus stop is not a bad one. Let's color code it, so the red step can be in red. So if we were to do 30, if I was to do 30 divided by 4, 4s into 3 goes 0 times. 4s into 30 goes 7 times. Add a decimal, add a 0. So how many times? So 4 times 7 is obviously 28. So there's going to be a remainder of 2 because it's 28 versus 30. And then, of course, 4s into 20 go 5 times. So that's how we work out our 7.5. There. And then if we wanted to do 7.5 times by 5, I might actually just double this. So that's 1 7.5 7.5. 2 7.5s will be 15. That's 2 of them because I've doubled it. That means 4 7.5s would be 30. And then 5 7.5s is going to be 30 plus another 7.5. And hopefully you can see. So I'm actually doing that multiplication really via addition. I'm just going, so if that's 1 7.5, that's 2 7.5s. That's 4 7.5s because I've doubled it again. And I've added a fifth 7.5 there. Because remember, of course, multiplication is just addition. happens several times in a row. I just add it. So if you times something by 5, it's the same as adding it 5 times. And I actually think in this case the addition was faster. Right, next page. So again, you can see the answers on the right. If you just want the answers, by all means use those. But if you want to see the working out, we'll go through them now. Question 6. Sarah bought £450 in cash to spend on the holiday. After the first day, £405 remained. What fraction did she spend? Okay, well, first off, I need to know how much she spent. The difference between 450 and 405 is £45. And all I'm doing is there is I'm taking the 5 away from the 50 to get 45, because I know that the 400s are obviously the same. So she spent 45 out of a total of 450. And hopefully you should be able to spot here that 45 out of 450, the bottom number is 10 times bigger. So if we simplify this, we divide both of them by 45, or 45 goes into 45 once, 45 goes into 450 10 times. So she spent 1/10 of the money. On the second day, Amy woke up at 7:17 and went to bed 15 hours and 20 minutes later. Oh my goodness. What time did Amy go to bed on the second day? Well, again, I would split this up into 2 parts. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out just the minutes, because I can see it's only adding 20, and that's going to be quite easy to fix. So 17 plus 20 means at whatever time she went to bed, it will be something 37. Okay, now let's work out the actual time. So if you start at 700, and we add 15 to it, we're going to end up with 15 plus 7, which is going to be 22, because obviously 14 plus 7 is how I did it. It was 21 plus 1 more. And then really, actually, it's not too bad as I thought. We can just say that it's 22:37 is the time. Now we might have to change that. Let's just see. Oh no, and it even has it in the correct time format, 22:37. So there you go, not as bad. The one thing just to watch out on these questions, if they go round to the next hour, of course, if the answer suddenly became 25, then of course that becomes the next day, because we operate on it. This is a 24-hour clock. So if the time was 25, it would just flip around to being 1 o'clock in the morning again. But the question wasn't that mean. I must say I was expecting it to be a little bit meaner. But I'm never upset when it's a nice question. Number 8. 9 out of 16 guests were from France. Okay, so let's just write quickly. 9 out of 16 France. 3 out of 16 Germany. What percentage of the guests were not from France or Germany? Okay, well, let's first off, I'm going to work out the percentage that were both by adding them together, or for the fraction of both. So that means that's going to be 12 out of 16 were from either France or Germany. F/G, France or Germany. So the fraction of people who are not is 12 plus whatever I need to get to 16, which in this case means it's 4 out of 16. And I'm hoping you guys can see that. Again, you can ask yourself, 16 take away 12 is 4, or 12 plus what gets you to 16? But obviously 16 out of 16 is the whole amount. So that's what we're trying to get to. So now I've got a fraction, so I know that 4 out of 16 are not from Germany. I'm going to simplify that to see if it's any easier. You can divide both of these by 4, I get 1/4. And again, 1/4 is something that I think you should just learn, that 1/4 equals 25%. But if you weren't sure, again, much the same as the question that we did earlier, if we still have it, where you're saying 1/2 is 50 out of 100, which is 50, well, again, 1/4, what would it have to be out of 100? In this case, you have to times 4 by 25, so 1 times 25. And as soon as you have 25 100, that is what a percentage means. But again, I would really prefer, guys, if you were learning these, it's just interesting to that just helps you to see where it comes from. So, what percentage were from neither France or Germany? Not from France or Germany? 25%. There's the answer E. 9. 1% of the water in the hotel pool evaporated every hour. If there were 346 litres of water in the pool, how many litres of water would evaporate after the 1 hour? Well, 1%. So what is 1% of 346? Well, 1% is to divide by 100, because 1% means 1 out of 100. As we know, if I asked you for 100th, 346, you times by the 1, which doesn't change it, and you divide by the 100. So what we're doing here is dividing by 100. And remember what I said, when dividing by 100 or timesing by 100, you're going to move at the number of zeros. In this case, it's 2 zeros. We need to move the decimal place. So the answer is going to be 3.46. And it was litres, so the unit is litres. And we've got an answer there. Again, if they're being particularly mean, they might make us convert it from litres to millilitres or something, but they've not done that there. So again, 1% of something. To find 1%, you divide by 100. And again, I'd recommend learning that, much like you know that 10% is to find 10%, you divide by 10. To find 1%, you divide by 100. Make sure you don't fall into the trap of thinking 10 is 10, 1 is 1. No. 10% is special because 10% is the only one where the number you divide by is the same as the number that's there. Again, just to show you guys the maths in case you're looking back. It was that divided by 100. Let's just group those together. There. Right, next. The Smith family holiday lasted for 2 weeks. What fraction of a year? Well, that is 2 weeks out of 52 weeks. Remember with fractions, guys, we always simplify if we can. So I can halve both of these, so that's going to be 1. Where do you half of 52 if you can't do it in your head? Half of 50 is 25. Half of 2 is 1. 1 plus 25 is 26. So it's 1 out of 26, which is where the answer A came from. Right, guys, that's it finished. Really well done. Ooh, didn't need to get rid of that. 1 out of 26. And let's press on. So the next activity we're going to do is the non-verbal reasoning. The non-verbal reasoning, that's on page 36 to 38. So just take a moment to turn to that page if you're not there already. And the activities that are coming up is actually quite exciting today because we're going to be doing a bigger range of activities. So you're going to start off with some similarity questions, then some cubes and nets, and then completing a sequence. And again, you've seen all of these. May I just suggest, and this is what we would normally do, bear in mind that the instructional video part, we won't listen to it today because I know we've heard it so many times now, but as part of that instructional video, you would have a moment once you've answered the questions to just jot some things down. So again, in non-verbal reasoning, I would just recommend writing out Spans Ross, for example. So S-P-A-N-S, Spans Ross. If, for example, since we can see cubes and nets are coming up, I might also just draw or sketch the pairing arrangements of this T shape, which as we know is the most common cubes and nets. So it's always 1 and 1 that can't pair up, 2 and 2 that can't pair up, and 3 and 3 that can't pair up. So I would just use this downtime that you would have in the exam to perhaps do something productive. I think just having these jotted down only once, but just as something to reference to, could be useful. So that's something I might do in my spare time once I've answered the questions, because I would still always recommend filling in the practice questions. Right, guys, so for this, you've got 8 minutes to do 15 questions. That's pretty much, well, in fact, that's slightly less. Well, 30 seconds a question, and you'll have a bit of time left over to check, which would be very nice. Again, some sections you might find easier. I know some people struggle with the cubes and nets, but they're faster with sequences. So please just make sure that you are selecting the questions that you find easiest and coming back to those later. So if you know that the cubes and nets give you trouble, perhaps do the similarity questions, then the sequence questions, then come back to the cube and nets. As long as you make sure you do come back to them, that's important. But don't be afraid if you find yourself spending more than sort of 20 seconds on a question, leave it, come back to it later. Because the easy marks are the ones we want you to be getting. Right, everyone, again, 8 minutes on the clock. Please make sure you are timing yourself. It's really important that you know how well you're doing to time. If, however, you don't finish in the 8 minutes, of course, as long as you change colour so you can give yourself a score to the amount of time and then a catch-up score, you're welcome to finish the questions before coming back and reviewing the answers with me. Right, everyone, that's all I need to say. Very good luck. Your time starts now. See you in 8 minutes. Right, everyone, welcome back. I think we're going to just go through the answers here. So again, the answers you can see on the screen hopefully are highlighted, but it's also quite important that I actually talk through. So again, if you want to just copy down the answers, that's absolutely fine, but we will be giving the reasons for each of these now. So, for number 1, these are all similar in some way, and the reason they are similar is all of these fractions, including a, are 1/2 when simplified. Obviously a half is a half, but I could simplify 2/4 to be a half by dividing both by 2. If I divide both by 6, I get a half. And of course I can divide both these by 4 to get a half. So these are all the same fraction. They've just been made larger. They all simplify to make the same fraction. That's the best way of saying. They're all equivalent to a half. Question 2, again, all the figures are similar in some way. So we need the line to be crossing at only one point. So obviously it's crossing at one location. If we go through, this crosses at 2. This doesn't have a line. This crosses at 2. This doesn't cross, which makes E our correct answer because it only crosses at one location. Question 3. For this, it's about lines of symmetry. There are no lines of symmetry on these shapes. However, all of these have at least one, or in some of the cases, a circle has got sort of infinite lines of symmetry, one or more lines of symmetry. And in fact, B has got 6 lines of symmetry, but E doesn't. So the common factor is that all the shapes have no line of symmetry. They're not symmetrical. Question 4. So all of these, and we've seen an example like this before. Let me see if I can get a snipping tool to show you. All of these are rotations of the same shape. So if we spin this round, hopefully you can see that that's A. Let's just demonstrate that same shape, and same shape. Whereas if we look, all the rest, B is just slightly different, C is different, D is different again, there's no way to make it match, and E is different. So again, this is another example for 4, where all the shapes are identical, they've just been rotated. So A is the one that matches. Number 5, again, what's the similarity? So they've all got the same style of border shading. If you look, it's all got this sort of horizontal top left to bottom right shading. So that immediately lets me get rid of 1, 2, and 3. And if I look at the colours, there's a difference between the shading here. And again, it's that sort of faded. This D is slightly too bold. So it needs to be grey shading in the same direction. Right, not too bad. Right, number 6. Look at the cube net below. Select the only one that could match. So again, let's go through and eliminate B. Can't be because of an alien shape, because we've got 2 black circles. Same with, if we look C, the rotation of this circle has changed. We're now pointing towards the black, and it was not. So C's got an alien shape. And in terms of D, this is one of those left and right hand ones. If we consider that this is on top, we would have on the left the black shape, and then on the right the grey shape. So on the left the black shape, but on the right here we've got a white shape. So they've mixed up the handedness, the left and right hand. So this cube here is like a mirror image. We're looking at the wrong side. Number 7, let's go through it again. So we've got a pair that can't match because we've got this triangle with this hexagon. So A is wrong because the pairs. What else for B? We've got a circle and a hexagon. Again, if we look, we shouldn't be having the hexagon and the triangle. Still the same pairing. Same reason as before. Let's look at C. Oh, this is an interesting one. So again, this is an example of left and right handedness. If I was to bring this down, so if I was to bring this shape down, it would start off by looking like that. Then it would look like that. trapezium drawing skills need work, but it would look like that as I bring it down, and then if I brought it down one more, I suppose it would be pointing towards the triangle. Now if I imagine, so I'm looking now at sort of these three shapes, if I was to say that the circle is the top, what should be on the left and what should be on the right? So if I'm looking from top down, I would see the trapezium on the left and the triangle on the right. Well, look, I've got the triangle on the right, on the left, and the trapezium on the right. So that's already wrong, but also the trapezium will be pointing in towards the shape from this side, and it's pointing up. This is wrong for two reasons. It's wrong for direction, but also wrong because of the handedness, the side it's on. And D is correct. Yeah, D is correct. And again, if we had this on top, circle on the left, diamond on the right, circle on the left, diamond on the right, it works. These are starting to get harder. They're starting to use more of our sort of low order skills. So actually, that's another thing we could have written down. We could have written out our rules. So we could have said aliens. This is our priority list, remember. Then we look for pairs. Then we look for rotation. This is also called arrows. We look for directions. And finally, we look for left versus right shapes. That would be something else we could have jotted down just to give ourselves a bit of a reminder, knowing, of course, that the cube to net section is coming up. Right, again, let's go through. So we've got a strange situation here where we've got two white hearts pointing towards each other. If you look, there's no way we can have two hearts pointing towards each other. They're always pointing in the same direction. Here, this heart is pointing towards the black shape, and you can see here that this heart on the side is pointing parallel to it, so C is wrong. And then here on D, again, we've got a white heart pointing up behind a white heart, and we would never have, there's no way to get the orientation, because of course you can see behind all these hearts. Yeah, no, can't happen. Just because you can never have this, where you've got one white heart pointing into the next part. Right, number 9. Let's have a look. Number A, what's wrong with A? Well, we've got a situation where there's a black arrow pointing straight in towards the tip, and if I know the shape that's up here will actually be this white one, and if you look, it will be pointing not into it, it'll be pointing away from it, so A is definitely wrong. So this one should be at the very least pointing towards the white triangle, so the white arrow. What don't I like about C? Well, if I look, I've got a white arrow pointing towards a black arrow, and my white arrow should be pointing towards this stripy arrow. So that's wrong. And again here, the white arrow is pointing towards the stripy arrow, but the stripy arrow is now pointing back towards it. And the stripy arrow should be pointing away from the white arrow, so D's gone as well. So that wasn't too bad. Last question then for us to have a little look at. So, what don't I like about A? Well, again, if I was to mark this one as the top now, so if that's the top, I'd be looking at it from this direction. Which one will be left and right? Well, I would have the black on the left and that on the right, which I enjoy. Actually, look, I don't think this is me not following my order. It wasn't left and right. What should have happened, of course, is if I've got a combination with this diamond and this white. Let me rub it out so it's a bit clearer. These black lines should be sort of pointing in towards the side of the white one. Of course, they're both pointing at each other on this one, so that's A gone. What about B? So I'm going to have to check, I think, my version of the book, because it's not very clear on the drawing there. So let me just turn to the page. It's page 36. I'm not sure this one is as clear as it needs to be. And again, guys, if you ever find that the picture is not that clear, oh, there you go. Look, you can actually see that the shading's changed slightly. So these ones, let's just do that now. These two are meant to be slightly grayer. That one's grey, and this top two are grey as well. That should help. So now, let's clear that off. So for B, can we have two white shapes next to each other? Because that's actually white. No, we can't. That becomes much easier to see. I was worried if that one was grey, it might be possible. Then let's look at D together. And D has got the grey shape pointing in towards here. Well, no, if I was to move this down, it would be pointing parallel. So you can never have a grey shape pointing in like that. So D's gone as well. That wasn't too bad. I say that the hardest one I think to eliminate here is A, just because there's a few bits going on. And actually, of course, you could have this shape up here. I didn't mention before. So if I move this diamond up there, it would look like this. But now if we consider these three, again, this is where the left and right kicks in. If that was in this position, and I'm looking at it, and this was the top, so I marked that the top, I'd be looking at it from this direction, and I'd have my diamond, my cross on the left, my equals on the right. So they have got it mixed up. So A is still a goner, and they're the two reasons why. If the X is there, it doesn't work, and actually, if the X is down here, it's pointing in the wrong direction. Good question. Certainly number 10. That's what that one is worth thinking about, just making sure you fully understand. Right, for number 11, let's go back to the answers. Looking at it, it appears like this is a rotation question where it's rotating 90 degrees. No, 45 degrees I want to say, because it's pointing there, and there, and there, and there. So the next shape should be in this corner. So yeah, if I'm doing a little sketch, it should look a bit like that. And there, C jumps out to me straight away as being the correct answer. Now, next up, select the next picture. So this is definitely a number one where we've got 3 sides, 4 sides, 5 sides, 6 sides. So you want a 7-sided shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I would just go through and check. I mean, that's 6 sides. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's 8 as well. Yeah, so we can eliminate all of those because we're expecting a 7-sided shape. Number 12. All right, let's look at the next section. What's going on here then? So it seems as if it's travelling. From that side to that side to this side. So yeah, my dot, if it looks like it's travelling from here to then here, presumably, to here, to here, to here, to here. So they're the coordinates. And the next stage in its travels will be here. So that's A. And guys, notice I've mapped out on one shape. So I've sort of, I suppose this one I guessed at, so this one. But I was just following back and so 1, I couldn't tell what happened, and it was there, and it was there, and it was there. That just helps you sort of fill in the gaps to see the part that's missing. It's a good way of doing it by just doodling on the same image, the steps each time. It can help you see. For number 14, so what's going on? So we've got the circle is increasing by a quarter of a circle each time, the line at least. So a quarter of a circle, half a circle, 3/4. So I'll be expecting a full circle. So there you go, there's E. And then looking at the last one, we've got vertical shading, diagonal, horizontal, the other style. So I think we go back to doing vertical shading again. B. Again, just a couple of lines really emphasizes by sketching at the top what's going on. I recommend that. Right, guys, give yourself a score out of 15. Really well done for that. Again, I think it was the hard part really there was the timing. Although actually that last cubinet did get a little trickier, especially when you start considering left and right. And hopefully you guys have seen this method plenty of times. Remember, identify something as a top of your cube and then say, okay, well, what direction would I have to look at it from to see both of the sides? And then when you're looking at that side, assign which one is left and which one is right, and then you can compare very easily. That's exactly how I recommend you guys do it to compare. Right, guys, we've got one section to finish off with. That's numeracy. Again, it's on page 44 to 47, 44 to 47. So you can find that for me, please, now. Turn to that page. The answer sheet will look like this. Let's just take a copy of that and put it here. So let's move you up, Mr. Numeracy. Just get you on so we can see both. So page 44, and it's again still part of the get ahead. And This is the one where it really matters, and if it's gone wrong in terms of selecting the correct page numbers, you'll know now, because of course it won't match up, which would be a bit of a shame. If that has happened for any reason, I don't want you guys to worry. You'll just have to answer it in your books. But of course, it does mean you're not getting the full practice. So please make sure for next time, if you're taking the time to get prepared, and make sure you've got the right answer sheet. It will always match. So if you're doing a get-ahead section in the book, you must have a get-ahead answer sheet. As long as those match, everything else should be the same. Okay guys, for this, 9 minutes, 18 questions, so that is a simple 30 seconds. Just please be aware, look, it's a combination where you're going to have to swap between filling in that classic, so the art example would be say 54, the example says 08, but then you'll have to switch over and start selecting multiple choices. So just be aware of that. I'm sure you guys will be fine. Right, everyone, 9 minutes on the clock. Again, if you don't finish within the time, finish the exercise in another colour pen and then come back and listen to the answers. Very good luck. Your time starts now. See you all when you've finished and checked. Right, welcome back everyone. I'm going to start going through the answers. So if you're not done yet, please do pause the video and go back. But if you're here, I'm hoping you're ready. Right, calculate the answer to the following. So this one straight away, it's just BIDMAS. So I have to do the division in the brackets first, and actually that's probably what I would want to do. Although, pro tip, you could also, dividing by 2 and dividing by 3 is the same as dividing by 6. And maybe we'll test that at the end. But I'm going to do it as laid out, because I think dividing by 2 is quite easy. So I'm just halving all my numbers, so I'm going to end up with 3, 2, 1. And now I want to do 3, 2, 1 divided by 3. And this one I might actually reach for a bus stop, just because it makes it a lot easier. So 3, give myself some more room. So 3's into 3 go 1, 3's into 2 don't go, but then 3's into 21 go 7 times to make 107. And if you did divide 6, 4, 2, maybe you can test that. If you did do 6, 4, 2, you divide it by 6, do you get the same answer? Perhaps you can test it out and tell me. Right, which number comes next in the following sequence? 1, 4, 9, 16, 35. The answer is 36, and this is one you just must learn. These are your square numbers. It's what I call a named sequence. So the named sequences are the ones that are special that you just need to be able to recognize are square numbers, which are where you do 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3. Cube numbers, which is 1 times 1 times 1, so that's 3 times. 2 times 2 times 2, again, 3 of them. 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times 4 times 4. You will never go higher than cube numbers as a sequence, but you'll also need to recognize the Fibonacci sequence, triangle numbers, and I think they're the main ones, they're the big 4. And then, of course, just normal times tables. But certainly square numbers, cube numbers, triangle numbers, Fibonacci sequences are very much worth recognizing. And if you're not sure what they are, I suggest you look them up or come to one of the Q&As and ask some questions. What, and again, just a reminder, that was 5 times 5, got us that one. This is the answer, got us 6 times 6. The next one will be 7 times 7, and so on. What is the numerator? So numerator is the top number when half is added to a 6. Okay, let's do it. So 1 half plus 1 6. Excuse me. In order to do this, remember we must rewrite this equation with the denominators being the same. In this case, I'm going to choose to make both denominators out of 6, because that's the simplest factor that both of them could be in. Obviously, a sixth doesn't change, a sixth is still a sixth. But to change a half into a sixth, I ask myself, what did I do to times the 2 by? What did I times the 2 by to get it to 6? I times it by 3, so I must times the 1 by 3 as well to get 3 out of 6. And now 3 6 plus 1 6 equals 4 6. But for our purposes, when expressed in its lowest terms, that means simplified. So let's just quickly do 4 sixths simplified is 2/3, which means the numerator is 2, which of course we'd write as 0, 2 in our questions, in our question bank. Calculate the value of x in the following equation. Okay, well, this is quite easy. We just want to get x on its own, so we need to do the opposite of dividing by 20. So we're going to times both sides by 20. That'll obviously have the effect of cancelling out. So now we'll have x equals 0.4 times by 20. Now 0.4 times by 20, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You could do 4 times 20, which is obviously 10 times bigger, and then divide the answer by 10. And that's probably the one that I would do, because if I do 4 times 20 is 80, but then that's 10 times too big, so then 80 divided by 10, which is 8. And as you see, 8 is our answer. You could also, I suppose, convert 0.4 into a fraction, so 4 out of 10, so that's in the same as times it by 4 dividing by 10, which actually is almost exactly what we did. Yeah, I think those two are the easiest. Either considering it as a fraction and then doing a fraction of 20, or I suppose a percentage if you wanted to. So 0.4 is 40%, and 40% of 20 is 8. That's probably the easiest way. Or you could set it up, I suppose, as a multiplication using sort of your lattice, your grid, so 0.4 times by 20. That would also work, but I think this was quicker in this case because it was quite a small fraction. Small decimal. Right, how many tenths greater? How many tenths greater? So that's my tenths column, let's just underline that. Is 4.567 rounded to 1 decimal place than 4.29 rounded to 1 decimal place. Okay, well, let's first off just do the rounding. So 4.567. So let's round them up. So rounding to 1 decimal place means, again, the 5 is the number that changes. The 6 is the number that decides. So 6 is bigger than 5, which means my number that changes will change up. So that's going to be 4.6. Again, 1 decimal place. 2 is the number that changes. The 9 is the number that decides. The 9 is bigger than 5, so the 2 changes up. So now I've got 4.6 versus 4.3. I can just take them away from each other, but actually you can probably spot that it's 0.3 bigger. But since it's asking how many tenths, that is 3 tenths. So again, the answer is 3, not 0.3. It's just 3 tenths. Okay, it's important to understand. So for clarity, I'll just say the answer is 3. Because there are 3 tenths bigger. Calculate the value of x in the following equation. Good old algebra. Okay, again, I'm going to want to get the numbers on one side and the letters on the other. Remember, we always move the thing that decides is I always move the smallest x value or the smallest algebra value, because it doesn't always have to be x, it could be y and so forth. We always move that first. So I'm going to, by moving the 2x, I have to get rid of it. The opposite of a positive 2x is taking away 2x. So let's do that to both sides. And that's going to then leave me with 7x take away 2x, that's 5 lots of x. And now I've done that, I'm just going to write everything else the same. So minus 7 equals 28. If I then copy that up here so I can continue. So now the next thing I need to do is I want to get x alone, so I need to get rid of the minus 7. So the opposite of minus 7 is to add 7 to both sides of the equal sign. When I say both sides, it's both sides of the equal sign. Again, let's just work it out. So we've now got 5x plus 7 minus 7 cancel out, they disappear, so just equals 28 plus 7, 35. And you might just know from your 5 times tables, 5 times what equals 35? Well, it's 7. But if we were to work it out, I suppose we could also, scroll down here so you can just see, the opposite of timesing by 5 is to divide both sides by 5. And 5 times 5, they cancel out. So I'm left with x equals 35 divided by 5, which is 7. And that's where the answer 7 came from. Let's just shrink that, but that's also consistent with our color coding. That's it. Okay. Right, that's the first page of answers. Again, hopefully that's enough time. If you need to rewind, by all means. Right, number 7. answers seem to have disappeared. Oh well, let's quickly fill those in for you. So Q9, Q10. Just so you've got it all there in front of you guys. Question 10 is... Oh, I see. It's when it changes to C and E. That makes sense. There you go. Sorry guys, the answers are there. They've just swapped this versions. Fooled myself. Right guys, I think of a number and divide it by 3, multiply it by 4, then add 1. My answer is 49. So let's start going in reverse. So 49, add 1. So the opposite of adding 1 is taking away 1. So take away 1 equals 48. So then I've got 48 and multiply by 4. So the opposite of that is dividing by 4. 48 divided by 4 is 12. And then 12 dividing by 3, the opposite is timesing by 3. 36. So you can see how I'm just doing everything in reverse. 36 is my answer. Calculate 5/7 of 80. Remember guys, I've discussed this. We times by the top and divide by the bottom. You get to pick the order. Generally speaking, especially since I can tell that 5 goes into 80, I think the division is easier. And the reason division is normally easier, providing it does go in, the correct number of times, it's not going to have decimals, is because obviously if I divide, I'm making it smaller. If I times, making it bigger. And normally I want to be dealing with smaller numbers. So let's do 80 divided by 5 first off. Could do this via bus stop, but actually if I know that 10 lots of, sorry, if 5 goes into 40 8 times, this is going to be twice as much. So it's going to be 16 times. But now I've still got to do 16 times 7. There's a few ways of doing this. I would probably do 10 times 7, which is 70, just in my head. And then 6 times 7, also in my head, which is 42. Sorry, get rid of that 5. 42. And then add 70 and 42 to get 112. And that's my answer. But again, if you want to set that out as a column multiplication, that's absolutely fine. And again, this drawing here, I wouldn't necessarily expect you to write this. This might be something you can do in your head, and that's what I'm trying to teach you guys. Some of the mental maths tricks you can do to really speed yourselves up. Number 9. A regular hexagon has a perimeter of 36.6 centimeters. So a regular hexagon has 6 sides. So 6 sides equals 36.6. What is 4 sides? Okay, well, a couple ways of doing this. Again, you've probably seen this kind of setup before, where I want to go from 6 to 4. So an intermediate might be to work out what 2 sides are. Well, if 6 is 36, how can I go via division or dividing and multiplying to get from 6 to 2? Quite simple. Divide by 3. So I can do the same thing here and divide by 3. I'll have 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2, but be careful. Yeah, I'll work out 12. So that means 2 sides is going to be 12.2 centimeters. So now 4 sides is going to be twice as much. So it's going to be 24.4. Again, how did I go from here to here? I times it by 2. So I'm also timesing by 2. And again, guys, you'll notice how often I use this. This idea of equivalence or doing the same thing to both sides is really important. That you can just set out, well, 6 equals this. I want to get to 4. Spotting something that I can quite easily, using mental maths, I can go from 6 to 2 quite easily mentally. And I can go from 2 to 4 easily mentally. Leads to the answer really quickly. Okay. Number 10, which of the following is most likely to be a measurement of a woman's height? 3 kilometers is a big no-no. Remember, guys, you should know kilometers. That's kind of car driving distances. That might be the distance from sort of work to school, or sorry, from home to work or home to school, something like that. 3.2 meters. Well, again, 1 meter. Now, I would say 2 meters is about the size of a room. So your ceiling, and of course I know some of you have high ceilings, some of you have low, but 2 meters is about the size of a room. 200 millimeters, well, that's going to be 20 centimeters. That's less than a ruler. And 1.6 centimeters, again, that's a ruler. 3.2 meters, again, I think this is perhaps the hard part comparing these two. But again, if you know that fact, if you know that 3 meters is about the size of a room, and in fact, I think 3 meters is about the length of a crocodile or something. So definitely too big. And again, this is about 1.5 meters, about 1.5 meters, which is about right. As I say, because I don't know many women who are taller than the ceiling. Maybe I would actually change that. Maybe I would say a doorway is about 2 meters, and I would say that a normal ceiling is about 2 meters and sort of 20 centimeters. Sorry, 2 meters. 2 meters. 2 meters and 20 centimeters, so 2.2 meters is about the height of a roof, of a ceiling. Good questions. And remember, guys, we've seen before where they were asking similar questions about liters, so I'm sure, a bit of getting ahead of the time, that later there'll be questions involving grams again, where you have to know grams, kilograms, milligrams, being able to understand those tons possibly, although we don't tend to see tons as much, we tend to just see 1,000 kilograms is. Just make sure you're familiar with these. It's just worth having an idea. And this might be just something where you have a simple conversation and a debate with mum and dad or sister or parent or uncle or an auntie, and just say, what do we think? Roughly how much does that weigh? How much does a car weigh? How long is a car? How tall is a thing? How wide is a door? How tall are the ceilings? Just little things like that are really worth having conversations. And what's nice is that can be quite a fun way to be doing something useful and revising that isn't just more worksheets and answers. Having discussions like this are very valuable. Right. Number 11. What fraction of the circle is not shaded? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 6 out of 10 is not shaded. So we can simplify it to 3 out of 10. 3 out of 5, apologies, because we're halving both of these numbers. There's your answer. That one seemed quite nice. Number 12. Lucy, Jane, Rule, and Tim run a race. Lucy finishes in 54 seconds. Jane finishes 7 seconds faster. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we want to know what Tim's time is. So let's start Lucy. Let's do an L for Lucy. 54 seconds. What's the next fact? Jane finishes 7 seconds faster than Lucy. Remember, if you're going faster, you're going to be doing it in less time. That's important. So I want to have 7 seconds taken away. So let's do J for Jane. And she's going to be 7 seconds faster, so she's 54, take away 7. That leads to 47 seconds. That's Jane. Then Lucy. Rahul finishes 5 seconds slower than Jane. So slower means we're taking more time. So R for Rahul. So 5 seconds slower. So it's adding 5 to Jane's time, which is 47. So that's going to be 52. And then Tim finishes 8 seconds faster than Rahul. So again, faster means take less time. So I'm taking away 8 seconds. So now Tim is going to be 52, take away 8, which is 46. No, 44. Yeah, 44. Oh, then there you go. I could have checked it there. 44 seconds. And again, guys, hopefully you can see I'm labeling it. I'm labeling it in the quickest way possible. I'm just writing L, J, R, and T because I don't have to write out the names. That wastes too much time. And again, I'm not taking the time to write out and show the examiner what I'm doing because the examiner doesn't see this. If it helped you to write out, for example, -7 +5 -8, that's fine. And I'll do it here just to show you what the steps were. But remember, we only need to be showing the working out that helps us get to the question. This is very different to sort of classroom maths, where the teacher wants to see all your working to make sure you understand. In this, I just want you to do the minimum amount of working, that gets you to the answer. That's very important. Okay, guys, 2 more pages, nearly there. George cuts a 4.5 kilogram block of marble into 9. What's the weight of one of those pieces? Well, that's going to be 4.5 divided by 9. Let's set up a bus stop. Need a bit more room. So 4s into 5 goes 0 times. 4s into 45, carry the 4, keep the decimal there, goes in 5 times. So it's 0.5 kilograms. That seems deceptively easy. So 0.5 kilograms. So that's your answer. Number 14. What is the measurement of the largest angle of the triangle? So what is this one? This is quite a good question. The rule we need to know in order to work this out is what do all the angles in a triangle add up to? And the answer is 180. So if I was to now add up all my angles, I've got 5b, 2b, and 2b. Well, that's 9 lots of b equaling 180. The reason it's worth writing this out is I can now work out what b is. If 9 lots of b is 180, b is going to be both sides divided by 9. 180 divided by 9, I think we might have seen this one possibly before. 9 goes in to 18 2 times, but it's not 18, there's an extra 0, so it goes in 20 times. So now I know that b is 20, what will 5 lots of b equal? Well, it's going to be 5 lots of 20. And that's the same as saying 100 degrees. Just where the answer came from. So this is one way actually to set up some algebra. You could also, I suppose, do it by sort of trial and error and ratios and saying something, well, 5 lots of something and 2 lots of something. What would the something have to be where it adds up to 180? But this, I think, is by far the simplest once you're started. So we go say that we add up all our angles and say that all the angles added equal 180 because all the angles added up to the triangle add up to 180. We then say, well, then I can work out what b equals. We then substitute b in to 5b to work out our answer. Tara swims 750 metres per day from the 27th of September to the 3rd of October inclusively. What is the total distance that she swims? Remember what I say with these, it's always worth just checking. So 27th, 28th, 29th. And again, 30 days, half September, so we know to go up to 30. So that's 4 days already, 30. And then it's 1, 2, 3 to get to the 3rd, so that's going to be in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So it's going to be 7 lots of 750. And I think perhaps the easiest way, well, we know that they're going to want the answer in kilometers, but I think I would still possibly, sorry guys, I need to make some more room. So again, initially I've just listed out the days so I know how many I'm dealing with, because it can be quite, people tend to forget the first day. They tend to think, oh, it's just to go from, it's 28, 29, 30, 31. Actually not 31, because in this case it's only 30, but they tend to forget the days that are actually you start on. That 27th day counts as a day, and so does the 3rd. So now I need to do 7 times 750. Again, for this one, we've actually done it before. I think in an earlier question, 7 times 750 or 7 times 7.5. You might choose to sort of double this and add it together 3 times, or set out as a bus stop. I think for this one, because 7's slightly larger, I might choose to do it this way. So 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 7 is 49, but 49 plus 3 is 52. So 5,250 meters, but we need to convert that into kilometers. Sorry, yeah, kilometers, which again is divided by 1,000. Remember, 1,000 is, make that look like a 6. 1,000 is 3 zeros, so I need to move my decimal place 1, 2, 3. So I end up with 5.25 kilometers. You see, if I put the decimal there, it's 5.25 kilometers. We ignore the 0. Right, last page. Number 16. 250 people were asked to choose their favourite colour. 40% chose red, a fifth chose blue, half of the remainder chose green. Okay, so let's work out what the remainder is. So 40%. Now you could choose here. You could try and put everything into percentages or everything into fractions. I think putting everything into fractions is easier because I know how to add fractions. Well, actually, let me just think. 40%. No, well, no, actually, I take that back. I think percentage might be easier because I know that a fifth is immediately 20%. And I'll do it this way just to show you that, because I know some people are more familiar with percentages. Remember, with fractions, decimals, percentages, they're all representations of the same things. So you can answer all of these questions by fractions, by decimals, or by percentages, and it all works out the exact same way. So 40% chose red. A fifth of them, which is 20%, chose blue. So that's red. That's blue. Should really color code it, shouldn't I? Half of the remainder, well, okay, what's the remainder? Well, that's 60% of people equals the red and blue. So the leftover must be 40% of people. Hopefully you're good with me so far. And then half of that amount chose green. So half of 40% is 20%. So what it's saying is 20% chose green. And it's 20% of 250 that chose green. Now with our percentages, how do we solve this? 10% is the easiest always, because 10% is divided by 10. So if 10% equals 25, what will 20% is twice as much, it will equal 50. So 50 people chose green. Again, if I was doing something very similar, I would, instead of converting them both percentages, I would have had 1/5, and I would have had 40% as a fraction is actually 2/5, which means I would then have added together. So instead of 60%, I'd have had 3/5 equaled, so it's really, that was red, that was blue, that was red or blue. So that means we've now got 2/5 equaling both. We want half of that, so we then need to do half of that. So half of 2/5, which is 1/5. And again, look, we said 1/5 is the same as working out 20%. So now if I did 1/5 of 250, hopefully you can kind of see how this mirrors. So again, guys, just to be clear, what I'm doing is I'm just redoing it the other way just to show you, because it's a pretty important lesson to learn. So this is doing it as percentages, below is doing it as fractions, and of course 1/5 of 250 equals 50. So we get to the same place in a very similar way, but it means you can kind of choose. If you're much stronger with your percentages and you're really confident with percentages, you can do these methods by percentage. If you're stronger with your fractions, you can often do things by fractions. You could even do it as decimals, although I wouldn't advise that because I think most people find decimals harder. Right, sorry everyone, let's just shrink that now. That's quite a lot of math for just one question. We are nearly there. This is the last page. You're doing really well. Right, 17. Diagram consists of 4 identical shaded circles inside of a square. The area of one of the shaded circles is 3.5 centimeters squared. So there's 4 of them, so it's going to be at some point we'll probably have to do 4 times 3.5. It's just a guess though, so let's keep reading. The square has a side of 7, which means all the sides are 7. What area of the square is not covered by the shaded circles? Okay, well first off let's work out the area of the square. It's going to be 7 times 7. So the area of the whole square is going to be 49 centimeters squared, because it's base times height, 7 times 7. But I now need to take away the shaded area, which, as I guessed, there are 4 circles each with this area. If I work out what that is and take it away, I'll end up with my answer. So 4 times 3 is 12, so just remember that. And half of 4, or 4 times 0.5, is 2. So that means 4 times 3.5 is 14. Again, you see I did that, I'm splitting it up. So 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 0.5, or 4 times half, or half of 4 is 2. Add them together to get 14. And now I just have to do 49 centimeters squared. Sorry, I should have squared there. Being good, I should have squared there. 49 minus 14, which equals 35. That's my answer. Guys, last question. We've done really well. Amanda brought £6.50 of groceries and paid with £10 note. What percentage did she receive in change? Oh, that's really cool. Okay, well, first let's work out how much she did. So let's do £10, take away £6.50. Again, there's your bus stop if you need it to. Again, you're carrying lots of zeros. I actually tend to, in my head, if I'm doing these mathematically in my head, I would actually just ask myself, or what do I have to add up to get there? So if I add 50p on, that'll give me the 7. And if I then add £7, sorry, from £7 to 10, I would need £3. So £3.50 is what I would need. But again, you could work that out using a column if you wanted to. So it's £3.50 she gets back, but it's £3.50 or 3.5 out of 10. Well, if I want to get it as a percentage, remember I need to go from being out of 10 to out of 100. Because soon, whatever number I have as the numerator on top out of 100, that is the percentage. So let's ask myself, how can I go from here to here? Oh, well, that's times it by 10. So let's do the same thing here to here, times it by 10. And look, 1, 0, so I move the decimal one place. So it's going to be 35, the decimal there. And that means as soon as I've now found the decimal, I can immediately just say, oh well, 35 out of 100 is 35%. There was your answer, 35%. Right, guys, again, give yourself a score out of 18. I think that was, again, quite hard because there was quite a big pace there in terms of keeping up with the questions. And I think really with those numeracy sections, that is a challenge. It's not so much the individual questions are necessarily harder, although they are harder than they were earlier. I think the time constraint is really the big thing on these. And that's why, again, that's why we practice doing questions to time. We practice the skills of finding the easy questions. Again, maybe if you're really good at fractions but struggle with percentages, you're going to find out all the fraction questions you can and leave the ones you struggle with till the end. That is a skill, is absolutely core and key. So please make sure that you're happy doing that. Right, everyone, thank you so much again. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to come to one of the Q&As. So our first viewing of this will be on Saturday in the morning. The Q&A starts by about sort of 11 o'clock, so by means drop by then. But everyone, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye, everyone.